All right, welcome to the intro of episode 21.
In honor, well, first, I'm Phil. He's Chris. Doesn't matter.
Did we not say that?
No. In honor of the speedrun competition, awesome games done quickly.
Yeah.
We decided to do our intro as if it was a speedrun. So we are going to talk fast. It is going to be gibberish. You're not going to understand a word of it. But know that at the end of it...
But it was done quickly.
It was done quickly. All right.
Give us a countdown, then we'll start.
3, 2, 1, begin.
Okay, first we start off with some news where we talked about speedruns.
And I talked about the score challenges on TA.
And then I talked about the Halo 5 beta.
And I talked about some 3 games I'm playing. 1, Rogue Legacy.
Then I talked about Fantasia Music Evolved.
2, Gunpoint, my game of the year last year.
Then I talked about Sunset Overdrive.
And then my third game is Civilization 5.
Time.
Good, perfect.
We did it. So guys, enjoy the episode. Thanks for listening. Subscribe on iTunes.
Those now. Maybe
Yeah.
I should just play more Grand Theft Auto. Set those up.
Gross. All right.
Go ahead.
Are you gonna beatbox?
I was gonna beatbox,
Okay.
but now we don't need to.
All right, guys. Welcome to the podcast. My name's Chris.
And I'm Phil.
So we don't have that much news, but we'll try to news each other up as much as possible.
We might only get a half news.
Okay. It might not get the job fully done, is what you're saying.
No,
you might have to news on your own after this,
Yeah.
kids.
You might leave a little upset that you only got a half news.
Yeah. All right. You got one? News me up.
Sure. In LA.
Los Angeles, for those that don't know.
Yeah, in LA Times.
Uh-huh.
They created, or an artist, I should say, created a life-size Pac-Man maze.
Yeah.
It also has lights
It's like
to simulate ghosts.
It's sort of got like holographic ghosts and stuff. So the world itself, like what would be considered the walls,
Yep.
are actually there, and then it's kind of lit up around the edges.
Yep.
And then there's sort of glowing ghosts. So if you were a person walking through the maze, it would be like a first-person perspective of what Pac-Man is.
Yeah.
But from overhead, it looks exactly like a Pac-Man.
Yeah,
game.
it looks amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sad that there's not more stuff that like happens
In
around
Chicago?
here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a great video game like museum, like art museum and stuff they have there also, where like different artists do different things based on video games. Like there's 8-bit gallery and things like that.
But I looked at it and I was just like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I would like to walk through there. And then that was the end of my news article.
Okay.
It's a half news right now.
Half news. So I there's also a speed running competition going on right now.
It's over.
It's over.
It's over by the time you will listen to this.
Yeah, you're correct. It's over. So Phil, what was that? What was that? What was happening?
It is called Awesome Games Done Quick. What it is a bunch of speedrunners.
Which once again, if you don't know, it's somebody tries to play the game from start to finish as fast as possible.
Yes.
So they usually implement tricks and glitches and everything they can. Nothing's off limits as far as I understand it.
Yeah.
The goal is just to beat an entire game in one sitting as quickly as possible.
Yeah. You can't use cheats. Glitches are separate. Like
No,
you
no,
can't
no.
like type in like a level cheat to get to the last level.
Yeah, that's I meant more like shortcuts sort of cheats, not like
So what they do is they every year they hold this. It's a charity event. They raise money for I can't remember what this one was for, but they raised, when I looked at it, it was like $1.1 million for whatever they're running for.
Yeah.
What is a bunch of people who obviously specialize in one game. Put their name on essentially this list. They all gather at this location. They live stream everything. They give you a big schedule of what game's going to be speed run at that time, and you tune in and you just watch people decimate games that you loved as a child.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything from old, NES games to games that came out, within the last few years. Like usually speedrun games, at least the popular ones, are games that came out a while ago, because it takes a while for all the techniques and tricks to
be worked out.
Yeah.
Nobody's speed running a game that came out 2 days ago.
Right.
I think here's my thought on speedrunners. It is not something I could ever do because I don't have the dedication that they do to perfect some of these glitches.
Just like one thing too. Like because it's not just doing something a million times. It's like there's a lot of skill involved in some of these games.
Oh, for sure. Like here's the games that I could speedrun.
Yeah.
Adventure games.
Yeah.
Because once you know the puzzles, click through the dialogue trees, you run and do the puzzle, I still wouldn't be the fastest. Because we're talking games like, say, Ocarina of Time or Super Mario, where it's just like, if I do a backflip at this exact spot and hit this wall at this exact angle, I'll go through the wall, meaning then I can get this star that's normally hidden away.
And you can't actually tell where that point is, but you have to memorize it based on the pixels, you know.
So I watch a couple of them every year, usually games that I'm super interested in.
Yeah.
And then I just go like, that's crazy, but then that's what I get out of it. So I tip my hat to them. But it's a world that's not one I can identify with.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an impressive thing to watch. And, you know, the good thing that's sort of built into the whole thing is that it happens quickly.
Yeah.
So, like, you can watch somebody complete a game in, 20 minutes, depending on what game it is. So even if you're not super interested or involved in the speedrunning community, you can watch a video of it and still be entertained.
Oh yeah, exactly. I can sit down and I can watch them do, a game that I've never heard of or a game that I don't even care about, and it's entertaining to see what the glitches are, how fast they're doing things, even what games they're playing. Some people pick some really weird games to speedrun.
Yeah.
Initially, I think when it started, it was like the really really top tier games that people love, and now it's like some Nintendo 64 track and field game, and
this was it. Nintendo 64, was that the one where they beat the record for sprint?
I think it was the Nintendo 64.
It was
64?
like 9.41 seconds or whatever, because all it is like a 100-yard dash. And so it was like one of those things that it's like you can come and try it whenever you wanted. It wasn't like a set event, so they didn't stream it. So it was like, you can come down and try to beat the record because it only takes 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And a lot of different people tried it, and I guess one guy that had a record for a couple other things and had the second world record for it ended up beating it. It was like 9.46 before the tournament started, and then he beat it 9.41.
Yeah, something like that. And it's just pressing A and B as fast as possible.
Yeah,
is what I think it was, where it's literally just like those are your legs, and you just run as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It starts off as this sort of, very disciplined whatever, but because there's a bunch of guys in one space that have fun doing this sort of things, then they kind of mess around too and have fun events. Like one guy I saw, he beat the first 3 dungeons in Zelda blindfolded.
Yep, I saw that.
So it was like all from memory. It technically was a speed run, but it was more about that he knew it so well because he had played so many times that he could do the button presses, the up and down, whatever, without even looking.
Yeah, so, which is insane.
That's insane.
I mean, that's another thing where it's just like, here's my thing, and I think me and you probably will agree on this. Speedrunners, you have to dedicate your gaming to a couple. Maybe you can do 3 games tops.
Yeah.
But that is your gaming life for X amount of years.
Right. It takes hundreds of hours just to do some of these levels sometimes.
And then, to me, it's just like, there are games that I love that much. That couldn't be one of 3 games I play, especially like back to back to back to back to back. Like, you got to imagine the people who are speedrunning Mario and Zelda. Yeah. There's no joy in that anymore.
Oh no, of course not.
Now it's all just like mathematical equations of just like jump here, jump here, jump here, duck, boom, bam.
Right. Yeah, it's all timing and perfection. And that's some of the games that are longer. Like if they're doing long story games, even like the Halos that are a couple hours, even the speedruns.
Yeah.
Like if you mess up one jump 4 hours into your speedrun, like that's you got to start over, Well,
those are things like the world record ones. Yeah, you have to start over if you're going for a world record run. Some of them are just like, look how fast I can beat Pokemon.
Yeah,
and they're just like, well, I'm not going for the world record of 12 seconds, but it's just like, I beat Pokemon, which is a game that should take you, 20 hours, and I beat it in 15 minutes.
No, wasn't it? Yeah, the guy beat it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't even know, like, I didn't watch it. I don't even know how you would do that.
They had to have implemented some sort of tricks and stuff, like, glitches. Because there's no way you can even just the tutorial takes like 20 minutes.
Catching one Pokemon.
Right, and because it's all, text-based, you gotta, hit buttons to get through the text and stuff.
So So good for them for raising money.
Yeah.
I would be fine witnessing it, like going there and watching. But I don't think that I would ever be able to even subscribe to anything.
No. There is one thing I saw, and I think happened during this tournament. I'm assuming it was because it was during a speed run. Is a guy that was performing the speed run stopped to propose to his girlfriend.
Yeah.
During it, which I think is crazy for a couple of reasons. Because your goal is to care about every millisecond of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it was a packed house of people watching him do this, and he stopped to take time. So it's a great gesture.
Yeah.
And it proves that like he really cares about her and stuff because he was willing to sacrifice the speed run for her.
Yeah.
What I was surprised about was that nobody in the crowd freaked out about it. They freaked out in a good way. They were all really excited and cheering and all that stuff. But I thought at least one angry nerd would have been pissed off.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah, stupid girls.
You're gonna beat Battletoads.
Yeah.
I don't know what game he was playing,
but yeah, that was fun and interesting. That was a good video to watch.
Yeah.
And luckily she said yes. I mean, she was on camera and there was a bunch of people there, so of course she said yes in person. You can always change it later.
Yeah,
you can't just say no.
You can't put me on the spot like that.
Yeah.
No, we're breaking up. But certainly for the people who check out their website, they have all the videos of every game up there. It's in the archive. So if there's a game you're looking for, chances are they did it. Also, as being good human beings, when it's up next year, you can always donate and hopefully I think they switch between a couple different charities, so
or
it's all for a good cause.
If you want to pick one game right now and practice for the next 365 days, maybe you can do it next year.
Yeah, pick Punch Out. No. Nobody could speedrun Punch Out.
Yeah,
because you got to fight Tyson.
Right.
So we got some games. Oh no, you know what, we got some other news before the contest that we talked about last podcast, maybe 2 podcasts ago.
It was last podcast.
Okay. GTA SC, which stands for the
Grand Theft Auto Circumcision.
Circumcision.
Yeah, that would be the last letter. Yeah. Anyways,
it's I think it's like the Great True Achievement Score Challenge.
That is correct.
What it is, for the recap, is achievements are tied to a certain amount of points.
Yep.
Then there's this website, we've talked about it a lot, it's called True Achievements, and what they do is they take those points, and based on how difficult they feel it is for that achievement to be obtained, they then give it another arbitrary number.
Right.
And that is the score for the website for that achievement.
Right.
You unlock that, you get so many points, you're ranked on this website.
In theory, the achievement points you get, the gamer score you get from achievement isn't necessarily tied into its difficulty. And also it's got its own set of rules that it has to be only up to 1,000 points per game, or 200 if it was an arcade game. So it might take you 10 hours to achieve one achievement that you only get 5 points for. Yeah. So True Achievement says, that shouldn't be worth 5 points. It should be worth 100 points.
Yeah.
So
it's harder than you think, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So we talked about the contest. Even we entered, despite both of us admitting that we're trying to get better about not going for achievements. We decided to enter a contest that's solely based on achievements. It started, it started at Saturday night.
So it started, 36 hours ago by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
So.
And what I'd learned, I thought I had a good handle on the rules.
Yeah.
But the rule is that it basically takes this arbitrary number that's tied to your profile. Yeah. It's your total score for these achievements. And then on a week-to-week basis, any change in that number, up or down, is reflected total. So let me explain.
We didn't realize that, because originally going in, we assumed that anytime we got points, once the game started, the contest started, that those would go on our record. Like, hey, today, if I got X amount of achievements for X amount of points, that was my point total for that day or for that week, depending on how we do it. But it turns out that's not the case.
So any game that you've ever played is up for grabs.
Yeah.
And how the points fluctuate, I don't want to get too technical because this is probably boring for some people.
Already, yeah.
Is that based on how difficult the game is, the more people that get that achievement, technically, the easier it is to get, so the points are lower.
Yeah. So
the more people that play the game but don't get it, the point goes up.
So, you could essentially not play a game for a while, but your points will fluctuate up and down within that game because it depends on every other person that's played the game.
Yeah. So it started on Saturday. We were both rip roaring ready to go. We texted each other ahead of time.
Yeah.
It's like, it starts in an hour. Be ready.
Yeah.
And then so once the hour hits, we started playing for achievements. Obviously taking a break to do this podcast and regular life. At the end of one day, there is 639 teams.
Yeah. So you have to either have a 3-person team, or you can also go individually. I think everybody is automatically entered
individual if you're on the team.
Yeah.
There's 639 teams. At the end of the first day, we were in the top 200.
Yeah.
At the end of the first day, you were in the top 15
individually. Out of I think it was something like 3,000.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands. You were in the top 15. There are teams that started off negative 4,000 points.
Right. And see, that's the thing. They didn't get any achievements yesterday, or maybe they got a couple, but because their overall TA score changed, they lost points.
Yeah.
So without playing, they're now in a huge hole
that they won't be able to get out of.
Probably, yeah.
So enough with the jargon.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about the competition?
Honestly, I feel like I haven't even started it yet. So we had that first push right as soon as the clock hit 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And the contest started. Had a couple achievements, got out then. I honestly have not played a game since then.
Yeah.
So even though I was very high in the rankings, it was because I had a couple of very hard achievements that I was waiting to get. So I feel like starting Monday, the day this comes out, the podcast, is when I'm going to really start doing the contest. I'm going to try to, make this a marathon and not a sprint.
Yes.
Because we certainly could get a whole bunch of points this week, which a lot of teams are doing, but overall that doesn't help you out. Because as long as you don't get eliminated that week, you don't want to get the goal is to get just above the line, I think.
Yeah. Because you want to be maybe 5 above the line, just in case anything goes crazy.
Because you don't want to blow your load too soon, as Tobias would say.
Yeah.
Because you only have so many achievements and so many points you can get. Unless if you keep buying new games and doing new stuff.
Going nuts.
So, yeah, the goal is to not get eliminated. The goal is not to be first place every week.
Yeah.
Because it resets every week, so what's the point?
Yeah. My initial thought before the contest started was I was a little worried because I assumed a lot of people would be sitting on stuff because that just seemed like that made sense to me. And so when I was looking through what I was sitting on, it was really a grand total of like 200 points.
Right.
And I'm just like, I don't know what the scores are going to be. To give an idea, the top team is over 10,000 points. It's only been we're recording Sunday.
Not even 24 hours.
Yeah, it hasn't even been 24 hours, and they have over 10,000 points between 3 people. The 3 of us, have 1,000.
Yeah.
Roughly.
And that's because that went down. It was more than that yesterday, but our TA score had changed.
So I was worried, and there's still going to be those teams out there like we're never going to win.
Yeah.
But I definitely think we're going to make it a lot farther than I initially believed.
But also I think the smart people are playing the game like we are, where they're not doing a lot right now. The first couple of weeks you really don't have to do much.
No.
As long as you don't get negative 1,000, it seems like you'll still be in the game.
And here's the thing, though. This first week is when the big negatives are going to dull out.
Yeah.
Because obviously, next week, I can't imagine anyone falls into 4,000 point hole.
No.
Unless that one game they played or that one achievement they played, everyone gets the next week.
I think it's the Master Chief Collection seems to be a huge positive and negative right now.
Yeah. There's hard ones that everyone wants.
Yeah.
And then it's jumping their score. But also, if 2-3 weeks down the road everyone starts getting those, then all those scores start to drop.
I mean, the tough ones, if you get the hard ones, you'll get a lot of points that will consistently stay up. Like the ones for speed running the entire campaign for under 3 hours, those are still up to like 1,000 apiece.
Yeah, but you think though that's 1,000 now. If one other person gets it, let's say it drops to 900.
Well,
then
it
you
won't.
get a negative
but it
100.
won't.
Well, it'll still drop.
Yeah, it'll drop a little bit. But
I think the strategy, and this works perfectly for me.
Yeah,
is you play games.
You're playing old games.
You play games that those scores are pretty much set in stone. Maybe it's going to rise or fall like 5 points, but those are numbers that you can.
But also, all those numbers are smaller.
Yes, yeah, because everyone's already gone through. So I'm not going to get any 2,000 point achievements.
Right.
But at the same time, in 2 weeks, I'm not going to have any negative numbers either.
Yeah.
Successful so far. We will update when things.
If big events change, happen,
we get eliminated. We come in first place.
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be. Has it? I know it's been early. You only played 1 day.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to draw any conclusions. So far, I've been playing more games.
Yeah.
I played.
There was a couple games that I had stopped playing.
Yeah.
Only for a few days, but like I was focusing on games that I already had achievements for or whatever. Like I was trying to play, I was playing the Halo 5 beta a lot.
Yeah.
Because it was like, okay, it's only out for a little bit of time, and I'm not going to get achievements for it. And so right now, that's a win-win.
Yeah.
So there was a couple games I was sitting on that I was like, okay, I can play these again.
Yeah. I mean, I think as it goes on, it'll just, again, the whole goal was to force me to start playing new games.
Yeah.
And I think it'll do that. Because like I said, I played 3 out of the 4 games that I've gotten achievements in. 3 of them are games that I haven't talked about.
Okay. Yeah, that's
One
good.
is Grand Theft Auto, but the other 3 are different games.
Yeah, I mean, because that is kind of the purpose. You do have to keep changing games.
Yeah.
You can't just play one game start to finish, and if you do, you're going to get knocked out.
Yeah.
So
we move on from that. Do you have any more news?
No, I don't have any news.
Okay.
I have just Halo 5 beta stuff, so it wouldn't not exactly news, but I think it's a good transition between
the two.
News and stuff we're playing now.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I was going to do my updated impressions of the Halo 5 beta.
Go ahead.
So the first thing I wanted to talk about was I wanted to better explain the team chatter that we talked about last time.
Okay.
Because listening back to it, I understand where I didn't describe it perfectly. Because I said like, oh, the guy's like, oh, a teammate went down behind us, sort of thing.
Yeah.
They don't specifically say like turn around. They might be like, oh, a teammate went down in blue base, and that happens to be behind you. That's how it helps you. They'll never say, like, actually turn around.
Yeah.
So that I didn't portray properly last time. Also, there's 2 types of team chatter. So for the most part, it's the people around you are just talking, quote unquote, not using the radio. So if you're not by them, you can't hear what they're saying.
Okay.
So they're just kind of shouting it. It's not like, so if you're across the map and you get sniped, you won't be, like, your teammates, not everyone's going to know they have sniper now.
Yeah.
And and the other time is over the radio. And the stuff they say over the radio is only major things, like, hey, rockets are up, or, like, 5 kills to win, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So it's, it's not quite on the nose as I had sort of described it, So I kind of talked about the basics last time, just sort of overall features and all that stuff. But I wanted to talk about like specifics, if that's okay. It's get a little bit like detail-y, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Okay.
Let's ask our listeners.
Okay, great.
Yeah. What if they all say no?
I know, right? So I want to talk about the controls.
Okay.
So the controls are different for this game, and what I always do for the different Halo games is, even though over the years they've had wildly different controls, whether it's because they've implemented new features or because the controllers themselves have changed, like all the way from the Duke to like, the Xbox One controller now has changed shape and where buttons are, things like that. Anyways, you have a lot of options. So like, don't be afraid of not being able to use whatever you want to use. Like there's like the old, like there's like Bumper Jumper and Recon and Green Thumb, like all that stuff that's always existed in the games. But I like to always use the default. So I've used different grips over the years of how to hold the controller. The only time I really had to change was for Halo 4. I implemented the claw, which is what it's called, where it's you bend your right index finger over so you can hit the buttons, the 4, X, Y, BA buttons at the same time as the triggers. So you use your left middle finger as your triggers and your bumpers, and you use the. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm parsing it out on my hand right now.
So that's like called the claw, right? So because B was, I think B was melee or something.
Yeah.
Or it was like crouch or something. I think it might have been crouch. Anyways, so I was using that, but because of the shape of the Xbox One controllers, the triggers are a little bit longer and they're angled a little bit differently. So for Destiny, I use what I call the air quotes.
You have all these names.
Yeah, well, the claw is like a thing that people know about. That's an established grip. But I'm using what I call the air quotes, where it's left and right middle. The middle fingers are on the triggers, and the index fingers are on the bumpers.
Yeah.
Because for Destiny,
that's how I play.
Destiny, left trigger is zoom in, is aim down sights. Left bumper is throw a grenade. Right trigger is shoot the gun. Right bumper is melee.
Yep.
So now I have all my pillars of success on my fingers at all times. So the Halo 5 beta default controls are exactly like Destiny, but I still had a really hard time getting used to that because I still want to click the right thumbstick to zoom in my weapon, even though it's now left trigger. Left trigger used to always be grenades. So like there was like a learning curve there.
Yeah.
But now that I'm there, I'm like really happy with it. Like I really like the way that controls are set up. And I like the movement in general. I'm just going to say it. Like I feel fast, I feel agile, like I feel very powerful, which is what I think a Spartan should feel like. So going back to the other games, it feels a little bit weird. Even like Destiny had like really good movement, I thought, especially when you upgrade some of your movement things. Like, you could run, you could slide, you could double jump, you could do all that sort of stuff. So moving felt great, but after playing the beta, it felt a little bit slow. So that's just a comment. Another thing I want to talk about is kind of deep, but is grenades. Okay. So just 2 grenade types in this game, which is fine. You got your, frag grenades, human grenades, and your plasma grenades. In Halo 4, I thought it was awful that for whatever reason you couldn't pick up grenades. You spawned with 2 grenades. You couldn't pick up grenades. There was none lying around, and you couldn't get some off a dead body. There was one perk that you could do it for, but you had to sacrifice other things. So that was like, I thought, a huge design flaw, because like Halo is like, grenades is one of the pillars. It's like you got to be able to pick up grenades. You can't just like spawn, throw 2, and then you got to wait until you die to use grenades again. And they also had grenade markers, so if somebody threw a grenade, it would have a little arrow on your screen, like, "Hey, there's a grenade over there."
Which is
terrible.
terrible.
That's terrible. That's gone. So that's good. That was a good improvement. And you can pick up grenades again. They're all around. It feels like Halo again. My one thing is the plasma grenades. They're kind of useless because it's kind of almost gone back to the Combat Evolved version of plasma grenades, where it takes like a long time for them to explode. So like you throw one, and it's like, it feels like 2 or 3 seconds before it goes off, and that's forever in a fast-paced first-person shooter.
Yeah.
Especially with all the movement upgrades they have now, you can just so easily get away from a plasma grenade. Also, it seems like their blast radius is super small, so I feel like they need to fix that. Another thing is the way you throw grenades is weird. Like, it doesn't feel as accurate as the other games did. So like sticking people with plasma grenades, which is like one of the grenade types, you can throw it and it'll stick to an enemy's body and then kill them. That is like very hard now. Like, I've done it a couple times, but it's almost on accident. Like, you can't, like, before it's like you really could control it and decide where to go and throw it.
Yeah.
I don't know if the arc is just different or whatever, and I haven't gotten used to it, but I think they need to fix that. I mean, that's just stupid stuff. And then one final thing is, it feels like I don't know where the grenades are going to bounce when I throw them now. And part of that has to do with the level design, which I want to talk about. Like, I feel like with the maps, at least the couple that we've gotten so far, and this kind of goes back into how they did Halo 4 also, but it's like, I feel like they chose art over gameplay a lot. Like, they wanted the map to look really pretty. They wanted this, to not just be blocky, short corners, right angles, stuff like that. So there's a lot of, rounded edges and rounded walls and all that other stuff. But because of that, I have no idea where my grenades are going to go when I throw them. Like, a guy goes behind a barrier and there's a wall directly behind him. When I throw a grenade, it could go one of 5 different ways rather than bounce off the wall and land by him, which is what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, like I said, they tried to pick art over design. And that's kind of getting frustrating because it's not just in like grenade throwing, but it's also like sight lines are sometimes like, it feels very cramped. Like Halo was always about getting out of the corridors and into open spaces. So like the first couple of games were all about exploring huge areas. You had sort of this open world where you could go wherever you wanted sometimes, and use vehicles seamlessly, things like that. But I mean, Halo 4 did this too, but it feels like very cramped and narrow. Like it's like you have like little corridors that you're fighting in, or little boxes, little bases, and there's not that big open spaces yet. I mean, that might change when they have their vehicle maps, but once again, with the new movement though, it just feels smaller. Like even when the older games that where you would move really slow and there wasn't sprint and stuff, they had wide open spaces. So and those were always like the best maps. So yeah, so the final map that was released, this is the technically the last of the 3 weeks of the beta, was a Forge map, and you get to everybody got to vote, I guess, on which map they chose out of the two. And for people that don't know, a Forge map is they give you a map editor in the game where you're able to place blocks and spawn points and all this sort of stuff. So anyway, so this is a level that was built in the map editor version. So it was made by the game company, but anyway, so
professionally done, but with the tools that you could potentially do it yourself.
Correct. So I was excited for that map originally because I was like, okay, this is going to be a map that's like mainly right angles. That it's less about the art style. So it's not like I'm not going to be afraid that I won't be able to see the blue players or like things like that. It's going to be more wide open and it's going to be blocky. So in that aspect, I did like it, but they did sort of implore some of their bad design, like a lot of cramped spaces, a lot of like just random blocks that are supposed to be walls and stuff. So visually, I thought it was more fun to play, even though it's less pretty, but it was just more competitive. But man, that was the hardest map. Like my goal of the beta was to get at least a killing frenzy on every map. And that was the last, like it took me the longest to get it on that map, just because it was very difficult for some reason. And it had the rockets, but that was fun. It was the only map that had the rockets on. They also, the third week of the beta, there's a new game type.
Okay.
And it's called Strongholds. So, a little bit like Territories or King of the Hill in the past, but what it is there's 3 like little bases, little hubs all around the map, and you have to control at least 2 of them to get points. So you control 2 of them, you start getting points. You control 3 of them, you get even more points. I'm not quite sure exactly how the point system works, because like sometimes you'll get 4 points for something, sometimes you'll get 20, and right now it's not that transparent of why.
Yeah.
But it is kind of fun because it keeps you moving around the map. You're doing something other than just straight killing. I mean, obviously kills always play a part in it, but you could go, -10 kill death ratio and still be the best player on the team because you capture the most points or defend it or things like that. So that's fun because one, like I said, keeps you moving around the map. You're not just sitting in one place, and it's not necessarily all about kills.
Yeah.
The problem is, at least right now, is nobody seems to know how to play that game type or care. Everybody is still just playing for kills. So it's very hard to be paired with randoms and be successful at that game, at least so far. But I think it's, once the game comes out, people that are interested in just killing will not play that game.
No, because they'll have other game types that'll always be available.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've played game modes like that, and it's always just dependent on the person.
Yeah, but
and so that's the issue. Is just like right now you have people in the beta and they're very excited to test out new guns and they want to try everything and they want to get killed with everything. And so I imagine, like you said, that when that actually comes out, that'll calm down. And that map type, there'll still be people who play it who go for kills and don't understand what's happening.
But I think that's the problem in general, is like objective game types seem to be dying off.
Yeah.
Because all people care about is just the killing, and then they go into like, capture the flag and they just kill the whole time and then they lose. Yeah. 3-0, and they're like, well, I don't want to play this anymore. Why am I losing? I'm shooting everybody in the face.
I've gotten 3,000 kills.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't touch the flag once.
Right. Yeah, so right now the spawns are awful. More often than not, I would spawn next to their entire team rather than my team. Also, I would spawn next to my entire team when they were all under fire. So more than 10 or 15 times, I would die before I even had control of my character, which obviously isn't right. So they need to fix the spawn, like, because I would get sniped because they would see me before I actually had control. Because there's that second, like, where your eyes kind of open up and you know where you are and you can move around. But I would just instantly go back into like a death camp. So obviously they have to fix that. I'm hoping that's just because of the beta, but if they don't fix the spawn points, the one thing they could do is add like invincibility for like 1 or 2 seconds. Yeah. Just 1 or 2 seconds would be enough. So also there's this thing that I didn't really talk about last time, but So there's technically unlimited sprint in this. So you can sprint forever. You never lose. You don't run out of breath or whatever. But when you do that, you don't regain your shields. So it's a trade-off.
Yep.
So the way they sort of show that to the player, the way they portray that information is, so there's kind of like 2 bars on the screen. Top bar is your shield. Second bar is your health. So once the shields go, you only got 1 headshot of health or a couple body shots. But there's also this little thin line on the top, and it lets you know how much time you have for your shields to recharge. So like if you're running and stuff and you stop for a second, you'll see the line going down. So you'll know, okay, I got whatever it is. I think it's like 2-3 seconds.
Sure.
But it's a nice visual way to know when your shields are going to come back and when you can move. Like if you have just a little sliver left and you're still getting shot, you're like, okay, I'm just going to wait a second. Maybe I'll get my shields back. So I think that was a good addition to it, and because of the new system of like your shields don't come back.
Yeah.
The problem is there's bugs sometimes right now where your shields don't come back no matter what you do. You can stand still, you can sit down, your shields don't come back. So they gotta fix that. But
is there a sit down button?
No, it's just crouch.
Oh,
I wish there was like Destiny. You could just sit down and be upset about playing.
Yeah.
Also, I don't remember if Halo 4 was like this, but I don't think so. So right now, at least, there's no friendly fire, which has always sort of been a part of Halo, which is you could always hurt your teammates. So you had to pay attention. Like you couldn't throw grenades, you couldn't like whatever, you couldn't just like randomly shoot rockets in anywhere or things like that. So right now there's no friendly fire, and I kind of like that, even though it kind of goes against the Halo. I don't know if they're just doing this for the beta or not, but I can't tell you how many times that a teammate has killed me out of negligence because they just throw a bunch of grenades in the room that you're in trying to fight a guy. Or they purposely kill you because they want the weapon you have, which is always the worst.
Yeah.
Like, that makes online gaming the worst. So, like I said, it does kind of go against Halo in general, but...
But I feel like there's a step in the right direction, because for that second reason alone, that is why it shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Maybe they could make ranked, maybe they have 2 different playlists. Friendly fire on, friendly fire off. Right, if it's super
competitive, has friendly fire on that, I think that's fine.
Like, if you're going to have, I would say, like, the team, like, the big team, like, obviously where you have to work together.
Yeah.
Then make it where it's on, because then you, like, you have a sniper and you have it designated this guy. And then if you just have asshole teammates, then, they're assholes. But maybe if it's, just for fun, you can have, like, at least a toggle. It's just like, hey, we all kind of suck, so let's not shoot each other.
You do have the option if somebody betrays a teammate twice, you have the chance to boot them out of the match.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's ways around that. Like sometimes they'll push you off a cliff or something that doesn't count as betrayal, or they'll get your shields all the way down so an enemy can shoot you once, and then they technically get the kill instead of your teammate. So.
Lots of
jerks. Yeah. Lots of jerks out there.
Well, and that's just the online community.
Yeah.
I mean, Halo's no better than any other game. It's still the same people populating it.
Yep. I think that's enough.
Okay.
That's enough for... So, essentially, this is the last week of the beta. So this is, I guess, the last time I'll talk about it. My overall impressions are the same. I'm excited for it. I like the new changes they did. And I want to see... I'm really excited to see new weapons. Like, I want to see some Covenant weapons. I want to see some Forerunner weapons. And I want to see how everything implements into the story of the game. They're probably going to disappoint me, but right now I'm excited.
I mean, here's my thing. If the multiplayer is better than Halo 4's and it gets you back on pace with
right
Bungie multiplayer, then I think the story could literally just be so.
Wouldn't matter.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter because you'll play through it once.
True.
You'll play through it twice. You'll play through it like once on Legendary and once on Normal or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
But then your focus is going to be on multiplayer. So if that's strong, then I feel like Halo's story can sink and it's more okay. Obviously, for me, who's mainly a single player gamer, that's a negative. But at the same time,
like it's certainly not ideal. That's not what I would want. And the game's not going to stick with me as long if the story's not there. But I probably will get more hours out of it if the multiplayer is better.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to look at it.
And that's just plus the way games are going now. Single player campaigns for shooters are 10 minutes long. And
because it's Call of Duty, that's what they just want you to get into multiplayer.
Go, kill.
Yeah.
Get your upgrades. Okay. So now we're on to games we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
I will start.
Good.
Give you a chance to wet your whistle.
Catch my breath.
After all of that Halo talk. I have a couple things. I don't know what I talked about last episode. I should probably listen to that.
Say something and I'll remind you.
Did I talk about finishing Octodad?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and you said it was like too short, and like we were talking about how they could have made a lot of levels, even though it's all the same. It's
yeah.
Like,
okay. So we'll talk about that. A new game that I haven't talked about that I've been playing is a little game called Rogue Legacy. For people who don't know, this is a computer game. I believe it is also for at least PlayStation.
Yeah, it came out for at least a console.
Yeah, it might be both. It might just be one. What the game is, it is an old school 2D hack and slash platformer kind of game. What the grand scheme of things is you start off as a knight who then goes into this castle for the story reason of like you're basically following this other knight, you want to protect the king, blah 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 blah. You go in, you die. At some point you are gonna die. Then
it can happen anywhere, or
it can happen anywhere.
Okay.
Well, like you play as well as you are, and like obviously there's a tutorial of like this is how you're gonna jump and this is how you're gonna fight, and you're probably not gonna die there.
Right.
But then they just
I mean it wasn't scripted. It's like
no, yeah, it's not scripted. You could theoretically,
play
if
the whole
you were
game
good
and not
enough,
die.
beat the whole game and not die.
Okay.
I don't know if that's possible, but technically it could happen if you were just that talented.
Yeah.
Anyway, when you die, you then pick one of 3 kids of yours to then take over your legacy. And this is where the game kind of gets interesting. Each kid has certain traits and is a certain class. Sometimes it's all 3 classes. Sometimes it's 3 different classes. But there's like, you know, your mage, your barbarian, your all these other things.
But there, you pick one of the 3 because they all have different traits, but also they sort of have traits of your last character.
Yeah. So like if you... one of the traits is giganticism. Your character is bigger, so it has pluses and minuses. Pluses are everything about your character is bigger. You have a bigger sword, you have bigger this. You can hit things from farther away, which is great, but you're also more of a target because now projectiles
are gonna hit you.
Chances are they're more likely to hit you than not. So then if that character dies, the character with giganticism, chances are one of those next 3 kids has giganticism. Sometimes it's completely randomized. The traits are usually randomized, where it's like one kid might be colorblinded, which means that the whole game, what you see is just black and white. There's like nearsighted and farsighted, which parts of your vision are blurry, so you can't, there's all sorts of weird things. There's dwarfism, where you're super small. There's one where the screen is upside down. I think it's like Vertigo or something like that. Where basically, like
the controls are the same, but everything the screen's upside down.
The screen's upside down, so you have to play like that. There's one where it's you're the one from the Matrix, so all the walls are just like
the green code,
you're supposed to see through things. Anyway, what it is, there's 5 head bosses in the dungeon. Your goal is to kill all 5. Blah 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 blah. As you go through the dungeon, there's treasure chests. You're getting gold. The cool thing is, every time you die, any treasure that you got, any gold that you got, immediately goes to your kids. You don't have to go pick it up. And then there's an upgrade screen when you start. So it's like, you want to upgrade your health a notch, it's 50 gold. So if you happen to get 50 gold your last playthrough, now you can upgrade. So essentially, every time you die, you're getting better and better and better. And then when you go into the castle again, the guy takes your money, and you basically start with 0. So there's always this kind of desire to just get enough to upgrade one thing. There's a gazillion stats, it seems. There's not really, but there's plenty of stuff to buy. So whenever I play, I'm always just like, okay, the cheapest thing was 70 gold. I just have to get 70 gold. And then if I die, at least I'm making progress. So what I think what's really hooked me about this game is it's always kind of pushing you forward, even though failure
is inevitable.
At first, I played it, I hated it. I played it, I maybe played through like 6 deaths, and I was super frustrated because I'm like, you start in this castle, every time the castle's randomly generated,
Yeah.
you can pay for it to be the same. But most of the time, it's like, you don't know if this room is going to be 5,000 skeletons or one skeleton.
You got to explore the same areas over and over and over.
Yeah, and then when you die, when you go into that room again, you're like, oh, I expect it to be this. It could be completely different. So it's just frustrating because I like want to try out the new classes and I want to try out the new traits, and I'd be dying and dying, and I'm like, I'm not freaking doing anything. I'm not getting to the head boss. Like, I feel like I'm failing. But then it's just like you slowly start to realize, like, oh, I'm getting better because now I can make it. I could make it 3 rooms the first time, and now I'm on my 5th time. I can make it 10 rooms.
Because in theory, your kids are slightly better each time, right?
Yeah.
Your offspring gets a little bit better.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that'll change if you pick a bad of the 3, but if you keep picking the right ones, you'll get better and stronger. And
yeah, and you kind of realize like what classes you like to play as. Like I can't play as a wizard, mainly because it's just like
you're bad at magic.
Yeah, I'm bad at magic. It's a button that I just don't think to use. I'm like sword, 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 and I have low hits and high magic, and I'm just like, I'm dying too quickly. It's really addicting. I've only beat the first boss. I've probably died close to 50 times.
Yeah.
I think I calculated it was about 20 deaths till I beat the first head boss. It's been like 30 more, and I've only fought the second head boss like twice. The good thing is you beat a head boss, you don't have to ever fight him again. So like you only have to beat each boss once. You don't have to like beat it all on a perfect playthrough.
Yeah, so it's like even though they changed the way that levels are, like every time it's random, it's still supposed to be in one universe. Like that's why it's like it's your kids. Yeah, and like you got to kill these 5 bosses.
Yeah,
they all exist in one planet,
but the head bosses.
Yeah.
It's addicting. It's fun. It doesn't. It's hard to describe, and I think it's hard to kind of get into because you will get frustrated really early. Because there's going to be a couple times where you die, and then you can't upgrade anything. You can't buy any gear.
Yeah,
and it just feels like a wasted turn. You're just like, I wasted that kid, or you're going to find a kid that you really love that you just love playing as. Yeah, and then it dies, and you're like, God damn it! Like I played for so long, and I'm sure I made a shitload of money. Yeah, but like.
I like that guy better.
Yeah. Now I can't pick a barbarian
because
my next 3 are idiots. Stupid wizards, and they all float upside down or whatever stupid thing it is.
No, I think the game's interesting because it sort of makes death matter.
Yep.
And it's also like super creative in both the different types. Like it's so randomly generated. There's so many different options. Yeah. That it's like creative what you're doing, and you're constantly doing something different. Like I feel like that's one of those games that it's hard to get bored in. Like you don't feel like you're in a rut of doing the same thing because no matter how good you are, you're going to be having to use new characters with new abilities, and the world's going to be different every time. Yeah. So even though the like building blocks are very basic, you can create a lot of different things with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is because I got it and I heard a lot of great things about it. And then I got frustrated, and I'm just like, I don't know why I wasted my money.
Why do people like this game?
Yeah, why do people like it? And then once I turned the part of my brain off that said death is a negative thing in this game, I had a blast. There are times where I was addicted to it, and I'd play like 2 hours at a time. Yeah. Which doesn't seem like a lot, but just like 2 hours of just a 2D dying over and over and over again. Because you could be
playing one room.
Yeah.
Yeah, over and over and over again.
So, but just like, you're just like, oh my god, I hope I get this character next. Oh, I did. Oh, great. I would recommend it. It's fun.
You just got to push through that first.
Yeah, you just have to, if you can approach it and just realize that you're going to die a lot, then you'll be okay. You just have to kind of start making... Like what I did is you just have to look at that upgrade screen. I click through all of them, and I'm just like, the cheapest thing is $70 or whatever it's going to be. And every time you upgrade it, obviously prices go up. So then eventually it's like the cheapest thing's $3,000. But then you make that your mental goal, and I'm just like, I'm going to stick around in this easy part of the dungeon, and I'm going to get as much gold as I can before I start working on the new worlds. And then you hit that 3,000. Obviously, you keep playing, but then it's kind of just like, if I die, I've made progress. Right. And that's how I guess you have to approach it. And that's, even if like the cheapest thing is upgrade magic and you hate magic, it's still like, okay, I still did something. The other games I talk about, I wanted to go back to Gunpoint because I feel like I talked about it a little bit a couple episodes ago.
Last episode.
And I talked about beating it.
Yeah.
But haven't expounded on why I
yeah, I mean, I have that problem a lot too, where in the room here recording a podcast, I cannot articulate any of the thoughts that I have while sitting there playing a game. And apart from just sitting there and always taking notes while I'm doing stuff, I don't know how I'm going to get better at that. But I totally get what you're saying. You're like, I haven't expressed properly why I like this game.
Yeah, because I put it number 1 on my list from 2014, games I played. And I talked about it's a little short. It did only take me about an hour to complete, but I've gone back and I played it over and over and over again. But it's for people who, again, all of our new listeners.
Yeah.
Real quick, it's a game where you are a spy who's essentially hired to investigate the story. I don't even need to touch on the story. It's really not that important. But then you are basically given, you start the level on the left side of the screen. It's a big building, usually in front of you.
Yeah, it's like, it looks like, it's like 16-bit, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then your goal is usually there's an objective on that floor, or one of the floors. You have to get in, get the objective, and get out on the right side of the screen.
Yeah.
However you do that,
it's
completely up to you. You can climb the side of the walls. You can hang from the ceiling. You can, later you get a gun. You can just shoot people, but that attracts noise.
Yeah, you have 3 bullets.
3 bullets. Everything's 3 bullets. But what it is it's every time I go back and play it, it allows me to try and play it a different way. And I really like that. Most recently, I played it where my goal was not to kill...
Your personal goal, right?
Personal goal.
Yeah.
Personal goal was to try and play all the missions and not kill a single guard.
Yeah.
To, turn off the lights, and then when they go to investigate, jump over them and, slide through the door, and then go up to, the next floor, and then they just, turn back the lights on and then continue doing their patrols.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some spots where you're, they force you to, there's one guard guarding an open door, and he's not moving, and you have to kill him.
Yeah.
But it's fun to the point where it's it gives you that kind of free form in a 2D world, which I think is crazy, where it's you can approach a mission so many different ways. You can kill every guard, you can kill none of the guards, you can just break through the top window on the floor if it's open and get the thing and get out before anyone comes upstairs, or you can start at the bottom and get all these extra bonus points. My critique that I know I haven't touched on is I feel the game is too easy, which is being too short and being too easy is kind of super negatives.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just the little I know about that game, it does seem like it's a lot of the same.
Yeah.
And they don't throw too many different obstacles at you, other than just there's different floors or different places you have to get over different guards. But other than that, those are kind of the only 3 things that matter. Yeah,
there's essentially 3 guard types, and there's the basic one who's just
an idiot.
Yeah. If you turn off the lights, he's going to investigate the lights, but you can take him out pretty easily by just jumping on him and punching him.
Yeah.
There's a second guard where you can't jump on. You can kind of push him back, so you could push him out a window.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't approach him one-on-one. You'll die. But there's still field of vision that you can kind of do. And there's a third one, which is their secret agent, which he can see in the dark.
He's a spy, yeah.
Yeah, he can see in the dark. He's quicker. He's a better shot.
He knows somebody's there.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. He kind of pays more attention.
Yeah.
But still, even knowing that, it's just sometimes. And I know because it was developed by one guy and programmed by one guy, I want there to be more, and I want it to be a little bit harder, and I want there to at least be a difficulty switch.
Okay,
Maybe make it where there's a normal mode and a super hard mode. And even if super hard is just we added in 7 extra bad guys.
Yeah.
And they still behave the same.
Or one bad guy, a new type of guard.
Yeah. But it's just obviously having played it through once, I died a couple times, I had to restart levels. Second time, even the don't kill anyone, which is just to me would be super hard.
Should be hardest, yeah.
I'm still crawling over guys on the ceiling and then dropping down right behind them and running through the door, and they're not any the wiser. But my stance today, my stance is the same, and where if you find this game on sale,
get it
because it's definitely worth the $10 it's being asked for now, but if you can get it for $5, don't miss it. I'll buy it for people. Just do it. A little dry mouth.
Do you want to get more water?
No, fine.
Okay.
The last game that I will talk about. So a lot of people have played this.
Should I talk about a game first?
Well, how many games you got?
I had 2.
Yeah, why don't you talk about it?
Okay, I'll talk about a game. Okay.
Think about it.
All right, so I talked about it when I played the demo, but I finally got the actual full version of Fantasia, Music Evolved. Great title. And if you don't know what it is, even though I've explained it on the podcast before, it is a motion-controlled music-based game where you're essentially the conductor of an orchestra.
Yeah.
And so you use, swiping and holding and punching gestures with your arms to mimic you conducting an orchestra. So it's all on, you got to time it to what's on screen, to the beats and everything. And the other fun part is that every song has 3 different mixes of it. And within those mixes are different instruments. Like, there'll be 3 different types of drums. There'll be 3 different pianos or violins or, vocals, whatever they are. And throughout the song, you get different moments where you're able to select between those. So you can create your own song, your own mix every time you play. And it's a lot of fun. Like, turning I turned like a police song into like a classical classical song, and it became very like eerie and sort of creepy, but in a fun way. Or I turned a White Stripes song into an 80s pop song, and that was fun too. So it's fun to play with the different music, and it's fun, like you do feel like you're conducting the music because you are in control of what's happening. And also, I haven't played it that much, but it seems to have a pretty intense story. It's got a pretty robust story missions that you play. Like you're trying to save, like first of all, you have to become an apprentice, of Yensid. Yep. So you have to do a couple things to go through the tutorial, play the different songs. Now you're an apprentice, so now you can control music more or less. And then there's this thing called the noise that's taking over different parts of the world, and so the noise drowns out the music, and it's got this cool little visual effect of like it's black and everything, all the lines are moving, and it's so you have to create new music in these worlds to get rid of the noise. And each little map, you have like little levels. There's like a forest level, there's like underwater, there's like a city, there's like the moon. So you go into these levels, and it's kind of all in an interactive space. So you can you can move your body left or right, you can step around and kind of explore stuff, you can use the cursor to highlight different things, and as you complete more songs or get music fragments, as they're called, by completing objectives, you can then sort of create instruments out of the surroundings. So like the sea turtle, you can turn it into like a bunch of like drums or whatever. You can make clams into an organ, things like that. So as you're completing things, you're transforming the world, and you're sort of playing with things. So it's like really fun, like musically. Like it's probably geared more towards the younger crowd, and it's geared towards like if you're a Disney fan or stuff. It's not it's not like a Sesame Street game or anything like that, but obviously, like I said,
like younger crowd doesn't know Police.
No, right. Well, yeah, the music is geared more towards it's for the most part, it's a combination of popular music, songs that have come out in the last couple of years, or 90s, 80s, that stuff too, of course.
Yeah.
And then like classical songs, both traditional classical songs and songs that were in Fantasia originally. So, there's that good mix there. And it is fun to, like, take a Beethoven song and add synthesized instruments to it to try to make it, a newer... Like, you can do, like, a dubstep version of, like, the Nutcracker, which is, like, crazy. Like, it sounds stupid, and it kind of is, but it's also fun. Like, it kind of makes music fun, which is kind of the goal of Harmonix, the company that makes it. So, yeah, I haven't played that much, like I said. Everything I've seen so far, I've enjoyed. And the songs are getting harder, more complicated, and that's more fun. Like there's sort of a learning curve to it. They spoon feed you early on in the game, but you kind of move past that. Like once it started, once I felt confident with all the different movements, it was starting to get really hard, and that was a lot of fun. So I don't know. I like it. It's fun. I will tell you more as we get further along, but I don't know. I think I would recommend it to people. If you enjoy other Harmonix games, if you enjoy like like they made Rock Band, Original Guitar Hero, Rock Band, Dance Central, any of those sort of games. And I've mentioned it before, but I feel like it's the easiest to get into. Like a lot of high end.
I would agree with that just from what I watched.
Oh, we would play the demo. Yeah,
it's because as opposed to Rock Band and Guitar Hero, where you have to do peripherals and you kind of have to learn a new control system.
Like even if you're good with instruments, you do have to learn. There's a big learning curve for using the instruments and using eye-hand coordination. And for dancing, obviously, like even if you're a bad dancer, you still have to dance, and it is kind of embarrassing more or less, and like you have to get into it. You have to use your whole body. But for this, it's just your arms. You just have to time it to the beat of what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's like the threshold to play it is a lot lower.
Yeah. I would be more willing to stand up and do this than like stand up and take the mic in Rock Band.
Yeah, or Dance and Dance
or
Central.
Dance and Dance Central.
Yeah.
So I agree with that.
And it was one of the games too where, like, my sisters didn't want to play it. Like, even though it was one of the games, I was like, hey, we're going to play this, because we like to play games at Christmas. And they're like, no, I don't want to play it. It looks stupid. Like, just based on the box.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, that's fine. And then so I sat there while they were doing stuff in the room, and I started playing. And then they got up and started playing with me too.
And they're like, oh.
So for whatever reason, it doesn't have that appeal. I think, even Caitlin, when she first heard about it, she's like, that's really stupid. I don't want to play that. But now I think she's come around to it where she's interested.
Well, I think they marketed it kind of.
That's
weird.
what I'm saying. Yeah, they don't do a good job of expressing what the game is.
Because when I saw even before they started doing gameplay trailers, when they just did like their stupid real people at a party trailers, like that was just like, that doesn't sell me. And then they're like, look at all this cool music from Bruno Mars and Lady Gaga, and I'm just like. Yeah, see, then it was like kind of conflicting because I'm like, I hear Fantasia,
and then I hear Bruno Mars,
and then I hear
Lady Gaga.
So I'm just like, okay, now I don't know what it's about.
Yeah, and like Bohemian Rhapsody, which I think is the perfect song for that game because it's a mix between like rock and classical, and it has those different elements, and it's good to play with. Like they pick it's a pretty good catalog of games they've chosen, and also there is the sort of typical DLC. Like there is other songs that you can buy and play also.
Yeah.
And just I don't know, it's just fun. Like it's cool interaction. The Kinect works really well for the game, and just playing around the world's fun. Like there's like a snow level, and there's like a Yeti, and you have to like find him. Like he's like hiding, and if you keep like looking for him behind trees and stuff, there's like a little mini game there. Or there's one where there's like this dragon on a mountaintop, and he shoots fireballs, and if you like knock it down with your cursor, it splits into more, and then into more, and then if you like quickly connect all the dots, it does like every time you hit it, it does a little guitar thing, and so if you hit them all, it sounds like a guitar solo. It's like it's like cool because it's like a dragon breathing fire, and you're turning fireballs into a guitar solo.
Yeah,
like that stuff's fun.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean that's definitely a game that I won't hesitate to get eventually because we have the Kinect. And while it slowly collects dust, besides like using it for workout games, just like I wanted the Kinect to be something, and that's another game that's just like, this is a game that's not just like a collection of mini sports games.
Yeah,
I could get motion sports, but I don't want to. I'd rather have a game that's well made and that's actually entertaining.
Yeah. But yeah, I would recommend it to you guys. So I know you're already interested in it, but it gets my seal of approval.
Nice.
And I would say give it a chance too, because on paper, just explaining it, I feel like you don't get the full experience.
Yeah, it's definitely. I would say. I mean, I think the demo's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the Xbox store. So like, if you have a Kinect and obviously, if you're on the fence with any game and there's a demo, get the demo. That doesn't need to be said. But at the same time, like, if you heard about this game and it even slightly intrigues you, like maybe you just want to see how it goes,
right? If you can get the demo, you have nothing to lose.
Yeah,
but if you're interested in music or Disney or like any of Harmonix's past games, give it a try. At least just watch a gameplay video of it or something.
Yeah.
Another cool feature it has is after you do a song, you can save the performance because you're mixing and matching instruments and stuff. You can like create your own mix, and then it gives you the option of uploading it to YouTube, which I think is a little bit weird. Like, it's cool and it's like got good sharing features, and actually that makes more sense than other things. Like, before they would integrate with Facebook, like, hey, do you want to post this picture of you playing Dance Central on Facebook? It's like, no, absolutely
never.
not. But it's like, the cool part about this is it doesn't show you at all. It just shows the music that you created. So like, there's no embarrassment there.
There's no me standing up, pit stains.
No, like, you don't see your
like,
outline like waving your arms around like an idiot or missing notes. Like, it takes the performance you made, the different mix of different instruments, and sort of saves that all together.
That's cool.
So yeah. All right, what's your other game?
Well, my final game that I'll talk about, Civilization 5. Brand new game. I don't think anyone's ever heard of it.
No, I that's weird that they would start a franchise with the number 5.
Yeah. I've had it forever since the sale, and I just started it. And obviously, for the most people, I don't need to explain Civilization, but I will, because that's the right thing to do. You pick a world leader, and then you live. You're essentially, there's a couple goals. You either want... You're placed on a map.
It's a simulator game.
Yeah, you're placed on a map with a bunch of other leaders. Depending on the map size, depending on how many you pick, could be 3, could be 5. And there's different ways to win. There's essentially you start off and there's domination win, which is take over all their other cities. And you do that by building an army and then essentially having your army outpower their army, and then you slowly can take over the cities. There's one which is called the cultural victory, which is you build these great wonders like the wall, the Great Wall of China is a wonder, and these pyramids and all these stuff that are our actual wonders in the world. And you have great people come and live in your city, and you get points for all these. Each great person's 1 point, each whatever is this, and so you just become a civilization that's known for these great things. That's how you get a cultural victory. You eventually build, I think, the United Nations, and once the United Nations is housed in your city, you win the game.
Yeah.
There's also a space race, which is build your technology enough that you are the first civilization that can go into space. So that's kind of the outline of what the game is. Obviously, you play it. It's turn-based. There's a lot of moving parts, and I don't want to bore people who already know what it is, and I don't want to overwhelm people who don't know what it is. But, you start off as this, essentially, nomads. You build your first civilization. You have to research things like pottery, and you have to research, you got to build a granary and all these things.
Sorry, I fell asleep. What were you saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to kind of talk about, since people know it, is how daunting this game is for, at least for me. I don't know if it is for other people.
Yeah, I certainly, I've played them in the past over the years. I mean, they come out on PC and consoles even. Yeah. And I'm kind of over it. Like, I don't know if it's just because I've played it a lot or because that sort of game style, I'm just...
Yeah, doesn't pique your interest. Well, here's the thing. I played Civilization early on. Yeah. Like 1 or 2 era. And I liked it at the time, but I'm just like, this isn't my thing. I was a kid. Yeah. And then I've always heard about them. I never really bothered playing them. And then people kept saying they get good. And I never had a computer that could run it successfully.
Not that it's exactly a graphical powerhouse.
No, but there's a lot of things, and there's a lot of loading and expansion packs. And then Civ Revolution came out for the 360, and I thought it was
for the not cool kids.
Yeah, it was the perfect meld to me, because it's like it dumbs everything down, sure, and everyone who plays Civilization is just like,
no, I want to be able to micromanage everything. Yeah,
but at the same time, like, it's just like, here's 5 things to research as opposed to 500. Right. And here's, like, as opposed to building, Yeah,
it's streamlined.
It's streamlined, and it was perfect because you could sit down and over the course of 2 hours you could play an entire match. Right. Civilization games don't last 2 hours.
It was one of those things where it's like Civ Rev was a game that you could play while you played other games, but all the other Civilization games is like you had to devote your life to just playing it all the time.
And it's one of those things where I had a lot of trouble getting it started and the install and blah blah blah, all that technical issues don't need to talk about. But then I started, and it's just one of those games where I'm just like, I am terrified to do anything in this game because there's so much that I feel like everything I do I could screw up. Yeah. And then when I finally start playing a game, like, especially this game where it's like every time you end a turn, a couple years jump. When it gets towards the end of the game, it's only like 1 or 2 or 3 years, but like the beginning, it's like hundreds of years. And so you research something stupid like alphabet, but then like by the time it's completed, it's like, congratulations, the Americas have finished alphabet in the year 1999. And you're like, how did it take us this long to do alphabet? And then I start getting paranoid because it's just like,
the end of the world's gonna happen before I do anything.
I haven't even learned pottery and it's 2055. Like, we can't.
Everyone's laughing at us.
We can't do anything. And I understand you can't make it where you essentially follow history.
No,
like there's stuff that
you're gonna be behind.
You're always behind. Every civilization is behind, and it's again one of those games where I have to train my brain to kind of shut off.
Yeah, you have to play in the rules that they have established.
But it's like I start and quit and restart so many times because it's just like I won't even run into the first civilization.
Yeah,
and like I'll just be like, oh god, I really screwed up where I put my city, or I got a warrior killed, and it's just like because everything is turn based and everything is so the time span alone of how long you have to take to play a game. It takes 5, 6, 7 turns to create one warrior. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Creates, it takes you 30 turns to finish researching horseback riding. It's daunting and terrifying, and I'm scared to play because I'm so scared of making mistakes. But I love those types of games because I like the strategy behind it.
No, I know what you're saying too. Like games like that, it's like before you go in, it just seems so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like everything seems so big. There's so many options, so many things that like when you start out, you're like, I don't want to make any mistakes right now.
Yeah.
Because 100 hours later, I might be really upset about that.
Exactly. And plus, like even just starting out, because it's been so long since I've played Civilization. I know there's a lot of new rules that I obviously have to learn. The amount of people you can select to be before it was like pick your major country. You're like one person per country. It's like you want to play as America, you're playing as George Washington. You want to play as England, you're playing as Queen Elizabeth. There are now, this is a huge exaggeration. There's gazillions.
Yeah, at least a gazillion.
You can play. There's people. We went through the list. Me and Caitlin went through the list, and I know I'm not a history major, and she is.
Yeah.
There are so many names that I don't recognize.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's people like there's George Washington and there's Queen Elizabeth and there's Napoleon and there's names that but then there's just like
Steve from Philly.
Steve from Philly. There's like
you remember he did that thing with steel.
Yeah, there's Bernadette Peters from Finland. And you're just like, and I'm just like, I don't know who these people are, and then I feel dumb because I don't know, and then I'm just like, who's heard of this?
And kills Charlemagne.
And then Caitlin's just like, really, you don't know who that is. You don't know who. I'm just like, no, I did. That was a test. I win. Let's quit. Let's never play.
Yeah.
So it's just like even before you start a game, because every character has something they're good at, and something usually they're bad at, and like special pieces they get. So like, if you're a Viking, chances are you're
gonna be able to rape people pretty good.
You're better at raping.
Yeah.
But you're not so good at the brains.
Right.
But if you're
doors are harder.
Doors are harder to get through. And so even you haven't even started a game and it's already like overwhelming. It's like, did I pick the right guy? Should I bench Charlemagne? Instead I picked Washington like an idiot. Everyone picks Washington. Yeah. And I just freak out. Yeah. And so like I've wanted to, like every time I see it on my list, I'm like, I gotta play. I gotta get better at it. And I always skip over that game because it's just mental. It's a mental block.
Yeah.
So that's the third game I'm kind of playing. That's all I got to say about that.
All right, then I'll just finish up talking about Sunset Overdrive. So I didn't do a first impression of this game. So this is kind of my middle impression because it's not. I haven't quite finished everything.
Yep.
But I have completed the main story and a lot of the side missions.
Yep.
So if you're unfamiliar, the game Sunset Overdrive is an open world, post-apocalyptic shooter. But it's not like the other ones because, first of all, everything's very colorful and cartoony looking, and the movement's different. So the way you move around the map, the globe, is you grind on rails, you hang off of telephone poles, like you're constantly moving. So like you're always moving, you're always bouncing. You jump on a car and it's like a giant trampoline and you bounce way up in the air.
Yep.
Plus you have other abilities you can kind of unlock, like you know, air dash and super jumps, things like that.
It's a very video game.
It's extremely video game, to the point where they're constantly trying to break the fourth wall and make video game jokes. And it gets old pretty fast. I will say that it wasn't ever that offensive, but it was like a one-trick pony. Like, the only jokes were about that this is a video game. And it was like all the time. It's like, yeah, we get it. You made a joke that this is a video game in a video game. The only part of that I did sort of like is when you get health, it does a little 8-bit, you know, sound, which that's fun.
Yeah.
But other than that, all the jokes about it being a video game, after the first 2-3 levels, I stopped listening to them. I actually started playing the game while listening to like music or something else. Like, I just stopped listening to the audio of the game. Like I said, it wasn't that offensive. It wasn't bad, but I never laughed at anything.
Yeah.
So the story of the game is this company created a soda called Overdrive that turns its citizens, like, if you drink it, it turns you into like this crazy zombie sort of thing. And so you're in this world and you have to sort of go to there's little factions of survivors. Like, there's people that used to be like Boy Scout troops that are now like samurais, and there's people that are like LARPers, you know, live action role players. And so you go to the different factions, you do a couple missions for them to gain their trust, and you try to, you know, all band them together to help you take down this corporation, more or less.
Okay.
You know, the gameplay wise, like the structure of the game, story wise, and everything is like any other game. Like I said, it's open world. You got different factions. You got main story missions. You got side missions. There's, you know, way more side missions than there are story missions. And I was a little disappointed that the entire story didn't take that long. It was maybe 5-6 hours, and that's, I don't know. I can't really judge because I also did side missions at the same time. But I thought it was extremely short, especially for an open world big game like this. Yeah. Even games like Assassin's Creed and stuff, I felt like it was way longer, just the story wise. But the good thing is, once you complete the main story, everything's still there. There's no like missable like quest or achievements or any of that stuff. So that's fine. So I kind of blew through the story. I did like, you know, one campaign mission for every 2 or 3 side missions. But there's still a lot to do, like, after I finished it. And it was a little bit, it originally, like, the game, quote-unquote, ended, and it was like, okay, that was kind of a stupid, unsatisfying ending. But as the credits were rolling, like, your character walks in and, like, that was stupid, let's do a different ending. And then it, like, rewinds, and then you do, like, a bigger, like, video game ending sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like,
once again, keeps.
I mean, it was like every cutscene was like 2 or 3 jokes about video games. Plus, they were, you know, the voiceover is always sort of like that. And there's okay, so the weapons are kind of fun. So everything is kind of different. Like, you have a gun that the first gun you get is it shoots a bunch of records. So you have records, and you shoot a record, and it can sort of, you know, ping pong, like pinball off of people and bounce around.
Yeah.
Then you have a gun that shoots teddy bears strapped with dynamite. And every once in a while, they'll explode into a fireball of like that's shaped like a teddy bear. Just fun, stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, you have a shotgun that like has like 2 balls on it for no reason because it's called like the compensator.
Sure.
And then you have amps, which are like perks that you can add onto either your person or onto your weapons. So one of them is like chance of lightning. So it's like every now and then like random lightning bolt will strike down and maybe kill some enemies. Or you have one like your melee turns into like tornadoes. So after you get to a certain level, you can like, you know, swing a baseball bat and then it turns into a tornado that knocks down enemies. So just random fun things like that. Like, it doesn't take itself seriously at all, but it almost takes itself like it's a little too tongue in cheek. Like, everything's like, oh, this is fun and crazy. Like the tag word they were always using when they were promoting the game was like the fun-pocalypse, which is kind of cringeworthy at this point. Like, it's kind of stupid, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you can have fun. Like, it's a very colorful game. I'm glad it's colorful. It's not, you know, those brown, dark colors that we were talking about that most next-gen consoles have. Yeah. Well, especially Apocalypse. It did sort of feel like the Nintendo color palette. Everything was very bright and colorful, and yellows and greens and oranges and reds.
Sure.
The movement was fun. It was a lot of fun to move around the world. There's a lot of like random Easter eggs. Like, I tweeted an Easter egg from like Arrested Development and stuff like that, which I didn't realize that it had happened. Like, if you saw like that was like real time gameplay, like I did it, and like was realizing what was happening as I was doing it. That's why I kind of like it happened really fast. But that was fine. That was fun. It felt like all of the little factions were very similar. Like the samurai guys were kind of like the LARPing guys, and like it's basically the way it was always set up was like you go to this place where these people are, and they all hate you except there's like one nicely shaped female that likes you, and then you start doing missions for her, and then everybody else likes you. And like that was the thing. You had like 4 different girls that were like your love interest, because every time you would go somewhere, you would meet a new girl.
Sure.
And it was like she would like let you do missions for her, if you know what I mean. And then
First
you gained the
mission.
trust of everybody else.
Yeah.
So that was like, whatever. And there was some there was some fun things in there.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is, I think what I've seen about the game is it looks fun. It looks like it'd just be a blast to play, but also, like you said, one of those games where it's just like, I don't know if I want to listen to it.
Yeah, like I started enjoying it more when I stopped listening to it, which I think, it's not necessarily fair to do, I don't think, but it made it easier to play.
Yeah.
And the story mission doesn't really matter that much. It really doesn't. Like, it's very cookie cutter, and like you've played this story before, and it's not about that story. Like, it even like points out like what you're doing is stupid.
Yeah. That would bother me if like over and over again they're just like, hey, it's a video game, so why don't you just run up that building?
They've said that at least once.
Why don't you jump on that guy's head? And you're just like, fucking shut up.
Yeah.
Like, I will break you, narrator.
Right. So there are like you do have sort of bases around the level too, around the world, and you can upgrade them, and by upgrading them, it sort of turns into tower defense, where you have some time, you have a little bit of energy, and you use that energy to set down traps. So you know, there's things that are like spinning blades, or the things like when you bounce on them, it makes fire come out.
Yeah.
Things like that you can sort of set around the world, and then once you're set, then it's like a wave-based attack of all these enemies coming there. You're trying to protect your little base as they're coming at you. So that's fun. That's a little bit different. You can also use that. That's kind of their multiplayer. It's cooperative multiplayer. So you can go online with like eight different people and do a bunch of missions where you're just sort of defending things and using your powers. Also, there's like a side mission where you have to deal with all the little icons that are over people's head, because like it's a video game, so it's like, oh, there's an icon over their head because there's a quest or whatever. Yep. But once again, it's like breaking that wall where it's like, oh no, you have to go dispose of all the used video game icon. So, yeah, I still liked it. I feel like I sort of emphasized the negatives to it, but it's a good game. It's got really great reviews. Everybody really likes it. Yeah. I'm having fun playing it. Like, no real complaints other than just the humor. It didn't really hit a lot of notes for me.
Yeah, and that's always subjective too, because there's certainly people who I'm sure play it and they laugh and they're just like, this game is what comedy writing should be.
Yeah.
And hopefully those people don't exist. But
I feel like probably the younger crowd is probably into it more than anybody else. Another cool feature is, though, the respawn animations. Every time you die and respawn, like, they're completely different. Like, one is like you come out of a telephone booth and it's like plays a little guitar riff from like Bill and Ted's, or like you'll come out of a coffin, or like there'll be like a van will pull up that has like a unicorn on it. It'll open up and it'll be like the zombie guys, and they'll throw you out of it. Like, just random stuff. Like, you'll come out of, there's a portal one where like you shoot a portal and it comes out of it, and you do the little like, you go loop. Through it a bunch of little loop. So like, I haven't seen the same one twice. Those are all fun and different. I like that idea. I wish they would have sort of somehow figured out a way to make that more part of the game.
Yeah.
So. But I recommend it. I would probably give it maybe an 8 out of 10 at this point, but I would still recommend it. It's not the greatest game. It's not I think it's getting like 9.5 for the most part out of reviews.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad game.
No, it's definitely an Xbox One exclusive that you would recommend.
Yeah.
In terms of like, if you were to get